Or they could be processing the trauma from being indoctrinated as young children, lied to and possibly disowned by family for having a different point of view. It's never an either or situation. I'm thankful for being reminded of this. Not everyone had my upbringing as a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I never felt forced or pushed or coerced or anything. I was encouraged lovingly. My parents didn't lie to me. And if I were to leave the church, they would not disown me. Of course, they would be lovingly hopeful that I would return back to the church and probably offer loving, kind encouragement. They might even lovingly chastise me, although I'm not even sure that they'd do that. My oldest brother left the church maybe 10 years ago now, maybe more. I'm not sure how long it's been. And I think there was some initial panic. I'm sure there's some things that were said that my family members regret now. My other brother, who's always been sort of the family policeman, was probably, well, I know he was much more confrontational and maybe abrasive than he wishes that he was. He looks back on that whole situation with some regret for the way that he sort of handled them leaving the church. My mom always wears her opinions on her sleeve, so I'm sure some things probably slipped out that were offensive. I myself made a video, I recall, about if the church is not making you happy, then you're not doing it right. I made an analogy about, going to the gym and not getting anything out of your gym experience. I used the analogy of not using the equipment correctly, and then I compared that to judging other people who are at the gym with you. That would be an example of not using the gym equipment correctly. If you were judging people that went to church, I recall that being taken the wrong way. I think all of us wish if we could go back in time that we were maybe just more loving, more accepting. We'd never really been through that before, having a family member leave the church. We weren't sure what was going to happen or what the right thing to do was. I feel like as members of the Church of Jesus Christ, we should try and emulate Christ's teachings. We should be the most loving people, the most tolerant people, the least likely to condemn and ostracize. I've not always been perfect at that. And I know that listening to other people, there are plenty of families where family members left the church and the family has acted much worse than my family did, cutting them off and disowning them. I've heard church leaders openly talking over the pulpit about how you should not act in this way. And I agree. I think we should all try and emulate Christ's love. Also, in terms of indoctrination, sometimes I've heard people, including leaders, use more fear language than love language. More of the dangers and consequences of living a lifestyle that's not in accordance with the teachings of Jesus Christ, and the dangers of leaving the church. Maybe it would have been better to use more of the benefits of being in the church and the positive things of being involved in the church, rather than the negative things about leaving it. I think sometimes in the church, and I don't know if this is inherited from Protestant ancestors, but we have sort of this hellfire and damnation approach to some things that I think is maybe not taking into account the mercy and love of Jesus Christ. And I do find that evident with some members of the church, and even some leaders from time to time. I've seen some parents who are extremely controlling, very, very restrictive, and very judgmental of their children. And the children's lives are way overly controlled. I can see from the perspective of the kids, this being sort of a traumatic childhood, and them wanting to escape this environment of absolute control, which seems to be coming from the church, but really is from the parents. Parents sort of use the church as their wrench to kind of ratchet down on their children's lives. Some people have really negative experiences in the church. I personally have had a really wonderful experience, being really supported and loved and taught and cared for. For me, Christ and my involvement in the church is one of acceptance and support and kindness. I really couldn't ask for a better environment. I don't think that a better environment exists on earth. But I've got to remember that this is not everyone's experience with religion, with my religion. There are millions and millions of members, and they come from all kinds of backgrounds. Some members teach racist and sexist ideas in their households and quote some talk from 150 years ago to support their ideas. Some households are extremely homophobic and intolerant and unkind and unfair. Not everyone espouses kindness and tolerance and love. And I'm not always perfect at these things either. So for those who've had a bad experience, I'm very sorry. And I hope that you feel that I think that Jesus Christ is the perfect judge, perfectly merciful, perfectly just. And he knows you perfectly. He knows your heart. You could not ask for a better judge. Because of that, I feel that everything is going to turn out okay, especially if your heart is in the right place. I'd also tell you that maybe you had a bad upbringing in the church, but understand that not everyone else has. A lot of us have had really wonderful upbringings in the church. Not all church members or church leaders are the same. And also recognize that it may seem like your upbringing in the church was this awful, terrible thing. And it's possible that some of that trauma, some of that negativity wasn't actually from the church. It may have been passed down generationally, was perhaps from your parents more than from the church. They might have cherry-picked out the things that they wanted to use as weapons, and it may have seemed like they were the voice for the church, but they're not. If the primary foundational message from the church is not love, I would say it's not from God. There's plenty of ways of expressing love, and there's plenty other ways of expressing any sort of help or many other things than love, but the foundation of it is love. And if it's not love, it's not of God. That's my opinion.